Hello there, people of the internet. I've kind of made videos like this before discussing essentially what we're going to discuss here, but not necessarily in the same context of what it is that we're talking about here. So, here in the United States, Americans can own guns. I've gotten quite a few comments from people like around the world who cannot own guns in their particular cities, and they're like, oh, Americans just own guns? I don't understand. And yeah, we literally just own guns. We can go out, get them, keep them in our house with ammunition. Some places, like, we have to have them in safes and lock them up and whatnot, but if you're an American here in the United States, then odds are you have at least been associated with some sort of firearm within your life, like to the point to where a lot of people, even if they're not gun owners, they know somebody who is a gun owner, or maybe their parents own some kind of firearm, or, you know, insert XYZ topic here. So, if you are an American and you do decide to go down the route of firearms ownership, there's a few different options for you in terms of firearms that you should have. And in my own personal opinion, I think that this right here is going to be 5 guns that I feel like every single American should have. Now, all that being said, we're not going to talk about the actual specific guns themselves. I got the hiccups, guys. I'm sorry, it happens. We're not going to talk about the actual, like, individual firearms. We're more or less going to be talking about a genre of firearms. And this right here, I think, is like a top tier #1 that I think everyone can agree on that everyone should have, even the people who are against firearms, and that is a .22 long rifle of some kind. I don't care if you want to go the rifle route. I don't care if you want to go the .22 pistol route. I don't care if you want to have the tube magazines that you got to feed one round at a time. I don't care if you want a semi-auto. I don't care if you want a lever action. I don't care if you want a single-shot bolt action. I don't care if you want magazines like this. I don't care if you want drum magazines. I really don't care what kind of .22 it is that you go with. But you should have some kind of platform that fires a .22 long rifle. They're not an overly powerful cartridge, but man, they're small, they're compact, they're lightweight, they're easy to use, light noise, light recoil. They're absolutely everywhere. By far the most abundant cartridge, not only in the United States, but in the world. Like, even if you were to go to some anti-gun country on the other side of the planet, where for some reason everybody over there who's in the government has guns, but the civilians have none, and world wars keep breaking out. That's probably a topic for another video. Alright, I'll have to write that one down. That's a good one. But even if you were to go over there, like, you can still find .22 long rifle over there, because that's one of the things that they're allowed to own. So, .22 long rifle, just because of the unbelievable availability and versatility of this cartridge, you're not gonna be putting down elk at 500 yards with the thing. But if you manage to get a proper shot placement within like 100 yards on basically anything, then a .22 can put it down. Like, it doesn't have a whole lot of stopping power, but if you manage to get the right round in the right spot at the right distance, there's a world record grizzly bear that was even put into the dirt with a .22. It wasn't even a .22 long rifle. I think it was a .22 long. Granted, the grizzly bear was like tied down or strapped down or something like that, but right bullet, right place, right shot placement, it did work. So that's a really good option right there. Another one that I'm sure we can all agree on is a shotgun of some kind. I really don't care if you want 410 gauge, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge. I don't care if you want a single shot, a pump action like what I have right here, or a semi-automatic shotgun. I don't care if you want magazine fed. I don't care if you want tube fed. Go out and get yourself a shotgun of some kind. I recommend the 12 gauge or the 20 gauge if you are like a smaller person, or if you're elderly or something like that. But I would recommend the 12 gauge just because of the versatility of the cartridge and how available 12 gauge ammunition is. 20 gauge, it typically is available in the same places where you can find 12 gauge, but not always. So in terms of versatility of the cartridges, you got your birdshot, buckshot, slugs. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on this particular video, but we all know that each of those different kinds of rounds have different applications. Like, for example, your birdshot, obviously you can use it for birds and whatnot, hence the name. But you could also use it in, say, an apartment complex if you're worried about over-penetration, or in a crowded area if you don't want your rounds going too terribly far. Like, birdshot within, say, 15 yards or so can be quite effective, and I've tested it on this channel. And as long as you're not using, like, the smallest little number 8 shot, the cheapest Walmart loads that you can find, then you can get some pretty gosh darn effective birdshot. Or if you need something a little bit more effective that's gonna instantly put down whatever it is that you're shooting at, maybe buckshot might be the best idea. Or if you're going after something a little larger, let's say you're going bear hunting, or maybe bear defense, or I don't know, your mother-in-law is coming to town. Who the heck knows what you got going on? Maybe some slugs would be a good idea. I've seen rifled slugs from a shotgun hit out to 300 yards, and most people can't hit anything beyond like 50 yards. So if you're an average American, like, the shotgun's capabilities are probably well beyond your own limitations. So, a really good versatile firearm that I think every single American should have. Up next, we have some kind of handgun. This particular case, this is a 45 ACP 1911 single stack that is not loaded. None of these firearms are loaded that I am showing off right now. This particular one is quite nice. This is a Charles Dally. They're not overly expensive. This particular one has engraving and case-hardened metal and whatnot. It's a pretty gun. But quite frankly, I don't care if you go with 45 ACP. I don't care if you go with 9mm. I don't care if you go with 40 Smith & Wesson. I don't care if you go with 10mm. I really don't care what it is that you decide to go with. But having a handgun in your arsenal, I say arsenal, I use that term very, very loosely. Having a handgun in your arsenal for potentially concealed carry purposes, I mean, you gotta be pretty big to carry a 1911, but I've done it. I'm 6 feet tall, 6'2", I think, last time I checked. It's been a while since I've measured my height. But somewhere around there, and I can carry one of these on person, even in summertime here in Florida, pretty gosh darn easily. It's big, but it's not that big. It's about the size of the palm of my hand, so it's not an overwhelmingly difficult thing to carry around. But if your concern is going to be concealability, then maybe go with something a little bit smaller. If you want high capacity, then there's the Glocks out there. They take like 17 rounds of 9mm. There are, I think Caltech makes a handgun in 22 Magnum that holds like 30 rounds, so there's options for you out there. My particular case, I typically take this thing out for hunting purposes. It's like a backup defense gun in the event that I need it, and I don't think I've ever needed to use more than 8 rounds of 45 ACP. But having something that you can keep on your person at all times is absolutely one of the big things, because something like a shotgun or something like a 22, that's great for home defense, but it's probably in the closet or against your bedside or something like that. If you're going to the grocery store, guess what? You don't have it with you. Get something that you can carry with you and keep on you at all times so you have a means of defense. Also, be sure to get decent with it. Handguns are actually more difficult to shoot than a long gun, although most people seem to associate like the opposites because handguns are smaller. But get halfway decent with it. Like, if you can smack a man-sized target at 25 yards, then you're probably doing better than most people. Handgun of some kind, go out, get yourself one. This is one of those things that I feel like all Americans should have. Now, if you have a handgun and, say, 22 long rifle, that would have some limitations. I would go with something a little bit more powerful, personally. Alright, up next. This right here is one that will probably cause some controversy. Some sort of rifle in an intermediate firing cartridge. Now, typically whenever people see things like this, they're like, oh no, that's scary, I don't need that much firepower. By design, these are less powerful than like 95% of your hunting rifles out there. The cartridges are significantly smaller, tend to be significantly lighter weight, and travel at significantly lower velocities because these are designed to recoil less. And they were designed to where, with the amount of weight that you carry, you could carry more ammunition, just because the ammunition is smaller and less powerful. So these are not the powerhouse of a rifle that people tend to think of whenever we're thinking of some sort of quote-unquote assault rifle style of a firearm. Now, this is not assault rifle, this is not select fire, but that's a topic for another time. Now, I do not mean an assault weapon. A lot of people confuse the terms. Assault rifle is a legitimate term for a select fire intermediate rifle firing rifle, or intermediate cartridge firing rifle. But it is definitely different than the media made up term assault weapon, and we can have that discussion in another video at some point. I don't care if you go with the AR, I don't care if you go with the AK, I don't care if you go with some like one-off thing made by some company, chambered in 5.56 or chambered in 7.62x39 or chambered in 5.45, or I really don't care what it is that you decide to go with. If you have an intermediate rifle of some kind and you can effectively and consistently send lead in whatever direction it is that you need to send lead in, then that's good enough for me. Just remember that if you lose the ability to send lead in that direction, you are up the creek without a paddle. This right here is more or less a firearm based around defense. However, that being said, this particular AK-47 I have taken hunting on many occasions. There's a rail system on the side right here. I can mounting optic to it. In this particular case, I got a 3x9 scope that I mount to this thing. 7.62x39. That's plenty powerful for the deer that we have, or plenty powerful enough for the deer that we have around here in Florida. They never really get beyond like 150 pounds-ish, and that's a big one. I got 5-round magazine for this thing. Like, this right here has served me pretty gosh darn well in the hunting world. But primarily around the world, a platform like this would be used for offensive and defensive purposes, depending on what it is that you decide to actually use it for. But whether or not people want to discuss if these things are scary or if these things should or should not be owned by civilians, no matter what happens, if you decide civilians shouldn't own this, there's still going to be people out there who own this, who have no problems coming after you. So if you think that you shouldn't own this, by all means, that's your decision. But there's people out there who don't give a damn what you have to say about whether or not they should or should not own this, and they will use it against you. Looking at you, government. Okay, up next, this right here is on my camera stand. I'm moving my camera for a second. Alright, up next, this right here is not necessarily the rifle that you guys need, but a really good option. Some sort of full-powered rifle. Something that fires a full-powered cartridge. This way, if you need to touch out to a longer distance, or if you need to punch a hole through something, or if you need to turn cover into concealment, you have the means to do so. This particular one is an M1 Garand chambered in 30-06 Garand, however it is that you feel like it needs to be pronounced. I'm sure that we can discuss that in the comments below. But 8 rounds of 30-06, that's a lot of power going downrange. I would recommend getting yourself something that is semi-auto. This way, in the event that you need that semi-automatic firepower versus something like a bolt-action rifle, which you need to cycle the action on every time you shoot, you have the option to have that semi-auto capability. So this right here is not exactly the most modern semi-auto full-powered rifle, but by God, would I feel comfortable if I had to rely on these things. These things are absolutely bulletproof. So some kind of full-power rifle, I would recommend 30-06, 7.62 NATO. At time of recording this, 6.5 Creedmoor is getting pretty popular. Get yourself some kind of popular cartridge. This way you don't have to worry about sourcing ammunition. You always have access to these things. If you get a 30-06 or 7.62 NATO or a 308 or something like that, then you're going to have the benefits of barrel life as well. Something like 6.5 Creedmoor, they tend to wear barrels quite quickly. For the average person, it doesn't really matter, but for people that are avid shooters, we tend to go through barrel life quite quick with your hot-rodded cartridges like that. So some kind of full-power rifle, that is definitely going to be something I would recommend that every American has. I don't care if you want semi-auto or bolt action or what caliber it is that you want, but I would recommend semi-auto in a common one. Now, all that being said, there's our 5 guns, but I do have a separate caveat, like a, what would I call it? We're just going to call it an anomaly, a shout-out, a additional firearm that's not technically a part of the list, but it's a part of the list. Let me see if I can find it here. Alright, this right here is one of those ones that you don't necessarily need. Like, a lot of people can get by without something like this pretty gosh darn easily, but if you have the option to get it, then by all means I would recommend it. Some kind of muzzle-loading shotgun. You can get away with muzzle-loading rifles, but some kind of muzzle-loading shotgun would be ideal. Specifically, a newer made one, because modern steels are a lot better than steels from the 1800s. So, this particular one is a percussion cap. If you can find a flintlock, then I would recommend that because of the argument I'm about to make. But something like this right here, you can keep running literally indefinitely. Unlike something like an AR or a handgun or an M1 Garand or an AK or something like that, once you run out of ammo, if you don't have reloading components for that ammo, then you're basically screwed. Versus something like this right here. This doesn't take an actual shotgun shell. This is one of those guns where you pour the gunpowder down the barrel, and then you push your bullet down the barrel, and then you have your rod right here that you take out, and then you stick it in the barrel and you pack it down. That's what this right here is. And making gunpowder to fit in making gunpowder to use in something like this is actually quite easy. I do it myself. I make my own gunpowder, and with this right here being a smoothbore shotgun, whatever fits in the barrel, I can shoot out of this thing. If I have like BBs or nails or I don't know, gravel or anything like that, I can pour the gunpowder into the barrel and shove that in, like shove whatever it is that I have into the barrel, and once that gunpowder goes off, it'll send that out of the barrel. There's no rifling to ruin or rifling to get in the way. It's just a smoothbore shotgun, especially if we're talking about a modern-made smoothbore shotgun to where the steel in the shotgun is quite good. Like, this is just one of those things that you can keep running indefinitely. You can use anything as ammunition, make your own gunpowder, use whatever as ammo, and I make my own percussion caps too. But in the event that you can't make your own percussion caps, I've done this before too. Take the nipple off, sprinkle some gunpowder into your little reservoir right there, hold your shotgun like this, and then just take a lighter. Just flick on a lighter right there, and it'll set off the shotgun, and you'll be able to send lead downrange with that. So this is just one of those things that you can keep going non-stop, and that's one of the big reasons why I think that everybody should own some kind of muzzle-loading shotgun. If you want to go with some kind of muzzleloader, just remember that you'll need the right side or the right size of projectile if you have rifling inside of your barrel. So just one of those things to keep in mind. If it's a smoothbore, then you can basically do whatever you want. I would recommend flintlocks over the percussion caps if you want longevity, just because then you can go out and find flint and you won't really have to worry about having to source percussion caps or anything like that. I make my own percussion caps too, so I'm not really complaining, but eventually I will run out of the resources to be able to do that. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. This video went on a little longer than I'd like it to, so I'm going to end it here. I guess I will see you guys on the next episode. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.